want you to close your eyes, and when I say a word, you're going to visualize the first thing that comes to mind when you hear it. A leader. Now open your eyes and ask yourself if the person you visualized was a woman. As a matter of fact, it's statistically shown that the results are pretty much the same. Both men and women almost always visualize a man. Now, personally, when I hear these words, I think of Madeleine Albright. And for those of you who don't know, Albright was the first female Secretary of State in the history of the United States. And during her first UN meeting, where she was the only woman, she was sitting behind a sign saying United States. And after listening to all these other men talk, she finally came to the realization that if she didn't speak up, the voice of the United States would not be heard. She stepped out of her normal, kind of reluctant female mode and decided that she had to speak on behalf of our country. But after all, it still took a man to call on her to get her voice out there. Now, it's evident we live in a male-dominated society. Currently, 28 women sit at the head of state or government in 195 countries. That's 14%. 14% of political leaders represent 50% of our world. And the excuse is that women are not as emotionally suited to hold political office. They're too bossy, too irrational, too vulnerable. Because men have been leaders for so long, the traits associated with leadership are often thought of as masculine and are not viewed as favorably when exhibited by women. While a woman may be called aggressive, her male counterparts are called bold. While a woman may be called intense, her male counterparts are called passionate. Women in leadership positions are seen as less likable when they do the same things male leaders do. And it's these stereotypes that are perpetuated by those who seek to exploit the weaknesses in women and disregard their strengths. A majority of Americans believe that women need to do more to prove themselves than do men. Even political administrators tend to seek out male candidates over females. Voters of both sexes, regardless of political persuasion, expected men to perform better. Females often experience additional worry around stereotypical discrimination, lack of fundraising, negative advertising, and just not being taken as a serious candidate. And ultimately, this decreases a woman's desire to even run for office. But what our world fails to notice is that women's participation in politics actually helps advance gender equality and affects both the range of issues that get considered and the types of solutions that are proposed. Now, let's take a look at the COVID-19 pandemic, for example. Countries such as Denmark, Finland, Iceland, New Zealand, Slovakia, and Taiwan have been internationally recognized for their effectiveness of their response to the pandemic. And what do these 6 countries have in common? They all have women sitting at the head of state. These women leaders were proactive in responding to the threat of the virus, seeking expert advice to inform health strategies, and creating a compassionate response with transparent communication. As we can see, whether a legislator is male or female has a distinct impact on their policy priorities. And as more women are elected to office, there's a corollary increase in policymaking that emphasizes quality of life and reflects the priorities of families, women, and racial and ethnic minorities. And we may be slowly moving forward. A record number of women are currently sitting on the 117th Congress. There are 144 female representatives, 11 of which are female committee chairs, and it's the most racially and ethnically diverse Congress in the history of the United States. These women represent a 50% increase from the 96 women who were just serving on the 112th Congress. While that's great progress, this group of diverse women only make up 27% of the entire congressional body. 27% of our political leaders represent 50% of our country. We can't expect to achieve the best policies when nearly half our population is shut out. We are moving forward, but it's just too slow. The latest World Economic Global Forum shows that it will take almost 100 years for the world to achieve gender-equal political representation if we continue at our current pace. That means you, your daughters, your granddaughters, your great-granddaughters will live in the same male-dominated society we currently have. So what can we do to shatter the stereotypes that are hindering our powerful women leaders? Well, to accelerate their political careers, women need communication, connection, and community. So first, communication. In order to reach gender equality in our lifetime, the next generation of women must be able to see their own possibilities. We need to start by encouraging young women to use their voice. Let girls be leaders. Intentionally host conversations about why it's important to lead and how to develop leadership skills. Introduce young girls to women in political leadership and point out similarities between her and the leader she admires. We need to see what we can be. If she can do it, I can do it. We need to see people we can relate to, people who are authentic, people that look like us and talk like us, people who come from similar backgrounds and had challenges like us, and people that show vulnerability. Next, connection. As Madeleine Albright said, there's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. Women's collective voice, when strategically oriented and perceived to be broad-based, is instrumental in the ability to negotiate transformative change. Progress happens by convening women leaders who have the drive and the influence to create positive change. When a woman helps another woman, they both benefit. And when women celebrate one another's accomplishments, we're all lifted up. Because together, women can do more, go further, and change the world. We have to speak up, and if we can't do it for ourselves, do it for your peers coming behind you. And if you can't do it for them, do it for your sisters. And if you can't do it for your sisters, do it for your daughters and your granddaughters to come. Because the young girls of today are the leaders of tomorrow. And finally, community. Think of the last time you heard of people advocating for equal pay or equal representation, and you'll most likely find that they were women. Oftentimes, the most vocal people advocating for gender equality are women. But if we truly want to achieve equitable societies, men also have to pitch into the effort. As a man, your support can go a long way in uplifting underrepresented voices and increasing economic and social opportunities. Men who want to support the movement should work on listening and validating women's experiences. After all, gender equality can't be accomplished without half our population. When several generations of women and men work together to make the path easier for women, our possibilities as leaders are no longer lost to humanity. But these gifts are still stifled to some extent, and we are still operating under models of leadership designed primarily by and for men. It's time that we, as women, with support from our partners, our colleagues, our families, from the political system, and from society as a whole, take our own chances. Now close your eyes and visualize a leader. Is she a woman? Thank you.